Good evening and thank you for joining us. The return of a fan favorite local festival brought thousands of people to the Bay and Algoma area this weekend to enjoy live performances from over 30 entertainers. The 2023 Buskers Festival was a success, and organizers say the turnout surpassed expectations. Jessica Clement reports.
The Bay and Algoma area was crowded this weekend, with people wanting to enjoy everything the Buskers Festival had to offer. And the event was clearly missed over the past 4 years. The festival featured over 30 performers, all excited to showcase their talents. Event coordinator Emily Shandruk says the turnout exceeded expectations, with the two-day festival seeing around 3,000 people each day. She says they're happy to be able to showcase various local talents to broader audiences, and that having events like the Buskers Festival is important.
A lot of our performers weren't actually live performers before the pandemic, so I think a lot of people discovered, a hobby could actually be a little bit more, and, now they're able to showcase, and maybe you'll see them, at a local pub or a restaurant or something coming up, and you'll be like, oh, hey, I saw you at the Buskers Festival.
The Kaminari Taiko drumming group wowed audiences with their performances. The group started out in 2011 after taiko drums were gifted to the local Japanese community by Associate Professor Dr. Takafumi Hirose. There are currently 14 drummers in the troupe, and drummer Angela Foreman says the performances and being part of the group are rewarding.
There's a lot of camaraderie, and the age range in the group goes from 18 all the way through 79. So it's an intergenerational group, and so there's a lot of family involved, and it's a really close-knit group. So every time we get to perform, it's a lot of fun for us.
Musician Mary Frances O'Meakin, also known as Mary Melodies, was another performer attendees were able to watch live. She says while she's been singing and playing guitar since she was 9, playing at the Buskers Festival on Saturday and Sunday were her first public performances.
It was a little bit nervous, but I've been really happy to do it because I love just seeing the smiles, and I had 2 little girls run up and say, "We're your biggest fans," and that made me so happy. It just made my heart jump a little bit.
Because the truth makes everything, will carry on. With all the positivity for this year's festival, Shandruk says they would love to host the event again next year. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
The Trudeau government's big cabinet shuffle earlier this week changed the portfolios of many ministers. That wasn't the case for Thunder Bay Superior North MP Patty Hajdu, who is planning to build on the work she's already begun. Hajdu remains as the Minister of Indigenous Services and the minister responsible for FedNor, and is one of just 8 cabinet members who remained in their roles. Most minister portfolios were shuffled, with 7 being dropped altogether. Hajdu says one of her focuses as she continues to hold her portfolios is to move forward legislation to ensure clean drinking water in First Nations communities.
Although our government has lifted well over 100, can you imagine that? There were about 140 boil water advisors when we took office 8 years ago. We've got 28 left to go. But very importantly, what communities have also said is that it has to also be fundamentally a law that First Nations have access to clean water in their communities with the tools they need to continue to keep the water clean, and the ability to monitor and understand what's happening with the water that feeds into their water systems. And so we've been working with AFN and with First Nations partners across the country to get to legislation that people feel good about. And so we'll hopefully be able to table that this fall.
Hajdu first became the Minister of Indigenous Services and Minister responsible for FedNor in October 2021. Students in grades 11 and 12 have been busy at the Roots Community Food Center's urban farm next to the volunteer pool. They're hitting the dirt to gain experience with growing food and other skill sets in a large garden setting. Carl Langdon has the story.
Run in partnership with the Lakehead District School Board and funded by the Ministry of Education, the Roots Urban Garden has been hiring summer co-op staff from grades 11 and 12 for over a decade.
See, there's 2 pieces.
The summer program sees students pick up essential skills both in and out of the garden. Lakehead Board Superintendent Jane Lower speaks very highly of the program.
For most of them, it's their very first part-time job, it's their very first summer job, and what we find is they have the confidence and the resume by the end of this 8-week program to go out and find a part-time job. They also have their first bank account, they start the savings, they learn about financial literacy.
Students also gain 2 academic credits at the end of the season, all while making a living wage. Roots Community Food Center's program director, Airin Stevens, spoke to us about some of the skills students pick up over the season.
How do you work in a conflict situation? How do you actually communicate, and how do you actually get your needs expressed? How do you open a bank account? How do you save money? How do you spend money?
When asked what skills he's improved this summer, student staff member Markus Stevens had this to say.
Definitely getting up on time and getting out of the house. This job makes me want to do that. So it's been a lot easier to fix my sleep schedule for the summer and wake up pretty early and get here. It's like a great kickstart to life, and they help you with pretty much everything you could ever need help with.
Angelina Ouellette, another student co-op employee, says the breadth of experiences that make up the program has been her favorite part.
Well, we get to experience so many different things. Like sometimes we'll go out and go to different farms. Other times we'll cook, like today where there's a little bit of, like cutting food. Other times there's animals. I got my hair eaten by a donkey a few days ago. There's just so much to do. It's so awesome.
The work students engage in goes towards facilitating community programs, like Roots Food Center's Meals for Seniors and Elders. Carl Langdon, TBT News.
In international news, more than 500 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says war is returning to Russia as drones slam Moscow. This comes as Putin ends a summit with Africa with no grain deal or path to end war. CTV's Heather Butts reports.
A large explosion in Moscow, one of 3 Ukrainian drones brought down, according to Russia's defense ministry. 1 person was injured and an airport temporarily closed. Video from the crash sites showed damage to office buildings, the area several kilometers from the Kremlin. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that war is coming to Russia. Attacks on Russian territory, he says, were inevitable, natural, and absolutely fair process. In a statement, the defense ministry said the attempted terrorist attack had been thwarted. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin and several leaders of African countries marked Navy Day following a summit in St. Petersburg. In the hours before the drone explosion, Putin said African and Chinese initiatives could serve as a basis for finding peace.
This is easy for Putin to say this as coming out of this conference. For the Africans, what they're looking for is the resumption of food trade to the continent that is being stopped as a result of the fighting in Ukraine. So Africans want food, Chinese want power, and become a world superpower to negotiate a peace.
Putin has also said there could be no ceasefire while Ukraine was on the offensive. More than 500 days into the war, the death toll continues to rise. A Russian rocket hit an educational institution over the weekend, killing 1 and injuring 5 more in the northeastern city of Sumy.
Really, this comes down to when does China, United States, and maybe even Turkey put pressure on Zelensky and Putin to say enough is enough?
Some analysts believe both countries will hit a culminating point later this year when their military can no longer advance, opening the floor to more dialogue in the coming months. Heather Butts, CTV News, Toronto.
Back here in the Northwest, the Patricia Gardens Seniors Complex in Dryden says it's now accepting applications to fill vacant units there. This comes weeks after local citizens raised concerns that an estimated 10 units were sitting empty. The private assisted living facility announced they will now be offering a mix of market rate and subsidized seniors housing in response to the service gap the organization identified in the community. They say the number of seniors who need financial support in order to afford a home is increasing. The KDSB will be supporting the supplemented rent units, and applications will remain open until all vacancies have been filled. And finally, idling trucks within earshot of people's homes in Terrace Bay have long been a thorn in the side of the community's residents. But a new transport rest area, which the MTO is building on Highway 17, should offer relief starting this fall. The new rest area is being built on the eastbound side of Highway 17, paid for entirely by the MTO. Mayor of Terrace Bay, Paul Malashewski, gave us a quick update on the timeline for completion of each phase. The first phase would see the area prepared to allow trucks to park there, and the next would include added amenities.
The MTO has said that will be up and running, all completed in 2024. They're going to have that done this fall for trucks to park there this winter. So, and they told us it will be all completed, washroom facilities and all that in 2024. So that'd be good news. Get some of the trucks out of town. I know there's been some issues before with trucks idling in the Canco parking lot, and the residents in that area weren't too happy.
With a constant stream of transport trucks running through the community, that date of completion can't come soon enough for Terrace Bay residents who live near those lots, currently being used as rest areas by truck drivers.